Active duty in the United States military, and I've had the honor and privilege of working with these individuals for many, many years as this nation has faced crisis after crisis and challenge after challenge. And I want to talk a little bit about the ones we are facing today. For weeks now, the attention of our country, understandably, has been focused on the serious financial troubles we face. At such a time, when the jobs and financial security of our people seem at risk, it's hard to spare much thought even for the great and abiding concerns of this nation's security and the security of our friends and allies across the world. But these dangers have not gone away while we turned our attention elsewhere. And the next president will meet no greater test than defending America from these threats. My fellow Americans, we're going to get through this economic crisis. We will get through it, and we will even come out stronger without the corruption and arrogance that have overtaken both Washington and Wall Street. We're going to pull through these hard times and do it together, just as our country has done before. But when that day arrives and the worries of financial crisis have fallen away, we will find awaiting our country all of the same great challenges and dangers that were there all along. They mattered before the economic turmoil of the present. They will matter still when it is past. And in a time of war, at a moment of danger for our country and the world, let it not be said of us that we lost sight of these challenges. Today I consulted with a number of distinguished senators who I know and who know from experience what matters most in the affairs of our country. They understand, many of them a lifetime of service, that no responsibility of government is more fundamental than protecting this country from the threats of the world. They are trusted friends and advisors of long standing, including Dr. Henry Kissinger, a man whose diplomatic experience includes helping to secure the release of me and my fellow POWs from Hanoi. By phone, I conferred as well with former Secretaries of State Schultz and Eagleberger. These gentlemen are always good for sound advice, and as president, I would be relying on men and women of their caliber and experience. These statesmen, and those who have joined me here today, are supporting my candidacy because we share many of the same convictions and the same assessment of the national security challenges before our country. And with good reason. They question whether my opponent in this election has the wisdom or judgment to serve as commander-in-chief. Victory must still be secured in Iraq and Afghanistan. Senator Obama opposed removing the dictator in Iraq and now obstinately opposes the need to defend the young democracy in that country, even with victory so clearly in sight. He cites in his most courageous moment in public life a speech he gave in 2002 against a war resolution on which he had no vote, on a matter of national security for which he bore no responsibility. He hopes you will forget the votes he cast when he actually did have responsibility. His votes to prevent the strategy that is leading to victory and to deny funding for the troops who are gaining that victory. And now he hopes that in the cloud of crisis at home, you will forget the stakes in Iraq, the disaster and tragedy that would follow if American forces leave in retreat. With terrorists still plotting new strikes across the world, millions of innocent lives are still at stake, including American lives. Our enemy's violent ambitions must still be prevented by American vigilance, by diplomacy and cooperation with our partners, and by force of arms as a last resort. In his 4 years in the Senate, 2 of them spent running for president, Barack Obama has displayed some impressive qualities. But the question is whether this is a man who has what it takes to protect America from Osama bin Laden, al-Qaeda, and other grave threats in the world. And he has given you no reason to answer in the affirmative. Senator Joe Biden has a way of straying off message and stumbling on the truth. And his most recent warning bears close attention. He cautioned us, in fact, he guaranteed his listeners, some fundraisers, by the way, that because he is untested, Barack Obama would only invite an international crisis. And we know well what one of those crises could be: the success of the Iranian regime in its program of acquiring nuclear weapons. If such a thing were to happen, our troubles of today would dramatically escalate as a nuclear-armed Iran threatened Israel or sparked an uncontrollable nuclear arms race across the region. In the same way, my opponent assumes far more good than is warranted from Kim Jong-il, the tyrant of North Korea, Hugo Chavez, the leader of Venezuela, who wishes to export instability to neighboring countries, and, of course, the Castro brothers, who have given Cuba 50 years' worth of socialist misery and are still at it. In each case, Senator Obama presents his plan for direct talks as if no one before had ever considered that. He seems unaware that more talk has been tried many times to no avail, and that our adversaries recognize such gestures as a sign of weakness. They will draw similar assumptions from the plans already proposed by the chairman of the House Finance Committee, Congressman Barney Frank, to cut defense spending by 25%, even with our troops engaged in 2 wars and with a force in need of rebuilding. We're getting only a glimpse of what one-party rule would look like under Obama, Pelosi, and Reid. Apparently, it starts with lowering our defenses and raising our taxes. Our national security is dependent on our economic security, and the plans of a Democratic-dominated Washington would harm both. Raising taxes and unilaterally renegotiating trade agreements, as they have promised,